What's going on, Spitfires? Welcome back to another episode of the Spitfire Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren LeMunyan, the Spitfire Coach, coming back to you with another episode that hopefully gives you some motivation, some inspiration, a little fire to spark you up. As a reminder, if you're not already subscribed, go ahead over to wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Play, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff, or you can head on over to spitfirecoach.com and click on the banner for new podcasts. We try to get it to you every week, so make sure you check back and leave us a review and tell a friend. Okay, so I have a little admission to make. I have been struggling to use my microphone. One day I'm using air quotes, I'm not doing video on this one, but it stopped working. I could see the light on the microphone, but it was not picking up any sound. I was on a Zoom call, so I just abandoned it and used the computer. And I was like, there's got to be something that I'm missing. And so I unplugged it. I plugged it back in. Same results. And I'm like, maybe there's a mysterious mute button. So I look, and there's a magical mute button on the top of the microphone. So I tapped it, but I could only hear myself a little bit. And I adjusted and I look around, and wouldn't you know, at the bottom of the microphone, there's a twisty knob. And I'm like, could that be volume? Now, I have had this microphone since like the beginning of the pandemic. So we're talking about like 4 or 5 years. And I never knew that there were all of these features to it. I literally just plugged it in and started talking. And that just goes to show you how much we take technology and all of the features for granted until we're kind of up a creek and have to figure it out. And isn't that such a perfect analogy for life? Of all of the little intricacies that we take for granted until we're kind of smacked in the face of what we need to pay attention to. So this morning after I dropped the baby off at daycare, and so happy for daycare after it was closed yesterday with the snow, I had a doctor's appointment because I've had trouble with my elbow. It's been bugging me, and honestly, I just needed to get it looked at. And as part of the military TRICARE health system, thankfully I have all of my medical care paid for, and it was like, what am I waiting for? I just need to do this. So I go in, and I give myself extra time to get there. And my favorite part about going to the doctors is I have this whole challenge that I give myself to see how many people I can make laugh or smile. And so usually at the front desk, they're very pleasant and fun. And so I knew I had a guaranteed one there. I see the same guy every time I go in there. No, I'm not like a hospital junkie, but I've noticed this guy before when I've gone in there. And then the funniest thing happens is, so they call me back. And so some people will be really bold in trying to pronounce my last name. And then there's people who are just like, nope, not going to do it. And so when I went to the pediatrician down at Fort Belvoir, the guy whispered to the front desk, what's the last name? She called my name. And actually, she called my daughter's first name. So I was laughing and I teased him. But today, he just said, Miss Lauren. And I go, you're not even going to try. And he just busted out laughing. It was so funny. And then he went and took my weight and my height. And he's like, all right, what height are we going to be today? And I've got these, Puma slip-ons. I said, that's going to give me at least an inch. He said, well, congratulations. You're going to be 5'4" for the first time in your life. And I was like, yes. And so we just were cracking up the entire time. I even made a joke about my husband's hearing loss. And I was like, it doesn't matter. He doesn't listen to me anyway. And he's like, you're ridiculous. I was like, I know it. But it felt so good to laugh. I haven't laughed like that in probably 3 weeks, for very clear reasons. But I was just like, I wonder if I could not just make people smile, but what if I brought laughter into it? Like, what if I could just, get a little giggle fest going? And so I went and had my appointment. I didn't get any laughs out of the doctor because he's very straight-faced. And I'm like, nah, that's too much effort for me today. But I had to go and get an x-ray on my elbow, and then he gave me a prescription. So at the facility, all these are in the same little pod area. So he's like, go to the pharmacy, put it in, and you can go get your x-ray. I was like, oh, that's fun. And so I went and did that. And as I was waiting at the pharmacy, this older guy comes in because all the veterans come in there to get their prescriptions filled. And he starts complaining about the parking situation. And no, I'm on my phone. I'm not like looking for a conversation. But he sits right across from me and he goes, "Oh man, these parking blah 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 blah." And I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, They should have someone policing them." And I looked up at him and I go, "Policing a parking lot? Really? That's a lot of work." And he's like, "Well, yeah, people who work here shouldn't be able to park here." And I was like, "Well, where are they going to park then?" And he just paused. He was like, "Oh." I'm like, "I think they kind of need to park here too, but I hear what you're saying." And I just let it be. And I thought, man, I hope this guy just doesn't keep curmudgeoning me and everything else. So I decided, I got called up to go check on it. My prescription hadn't gotten called in yet from the doctor. So I was like, you know what, let me go check out radiology and go get my x-ray done. So I got up and left, and it took like 5 minutes, and I had a lovely little conversation with the lab tech back there. She was a hoot. And we were talking about babies and husbands and all those things. And that was great. They were really wonderful back there. And so I went back and checked in with the woman behind the desk at the pharmacy. And she said, "Oh, the doctor actually forgot to call in your prescription. But we got it now. We're good." And so I sat back down, and the guy, it was like he was waiting for me. He was like he missed me. And I thought, you know what? He's probably lonely. He's probably a little bored. Let me give him a little razzle-dazzle Spitfire energy. And so he struck up this conversation about how challenging it is as a retiree, as a vet, with his pension and retirement, and then with the Plan B Medicaid. Is it Medicaid or Medicare, that they make too much money, so then they have to pay it out, and this kind of like circuitous. And I said, "Wow, I thought you were really going to sell retirement to me. I'm really disappointed in you." And he looked at me like I was nuts and then cracked up. I'm like, "You're supposed to sell the dream of retirement." He's like, "It's not all it's cracked up to be." So here is this man who came in so grumpy. And by the end of this interaction, we were cheering for each other when our numbers got called to get our prescription, and wished each other a nice day. And so you don't need to be that involved with people, but it's really just like giving people like some time, giving them some space to just exhale. Like, I didn't need to take on his drama. And I wasn't being disrespectful. I was being playful with him. And I was just kind of like, "Oh, that sucks. But that sounds ridiculous." What you're asking people to do, to be further inconvenienced when I'm sure they're already short-staffed and wanting to police a parking lot. But everyone is in their own journey and their own experience, and people are having their own obstacles and challenges in their life. And so if we can just give them a little grace, and let them kind of exhale a little bit, like, who knows how his day could change? I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty crafty. I'm a bit of a magician myself, but I feel better. So whether or not he feels better, I feel amazing because I was able to interact with people in a really positive way. And I wasn't rushed. I actually had a session that was like 20 minutes, and I had about 10-minute cushion to get home and eat something, and I had just enough time, and ended up having a really wonderful session afterwards. And so you don't have to be in the funk of it all the time. I think that's the big takeaway for me, is that I can choose how I want to show up and have a better outcome. And I know that when I'm kind of in this playpen of life, like when I can see other people as like who are ready to laugh, or who like are on the verge of like cracking their facade, like I'm ready for them. And I think that that's where our opportunity is. Like, it's not about this overarching big picture of amazingness, because we don't know if that's guaranteed ever. Like, we don't know when the next crisis is going to happen, or when something, unexpected is going to occur. Uncertainty will always be there. Disruption will always be there. But what we do have in our control is our ability to have influence in the moment. We can inject humor. We can be playful. We can smile at people. We can make eye contact with people. We can be present. And that can change your experience in that moment as well. And so it's just about being really conscious and being present and deciding how you want to show up and letting people be who they are. And they might surprise you. They might shift because of just some little magical dust that you put out there. So I hope this was helpful. Hope you have an amazing day. Go be magician, sprinkling your fairy sparkle Spitfire dust everywhere, and y'all keep being awesome.